Alright, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Chupacabra's Lair. I'm your host, Larry, and we're here for another indie dungeon crawling experience today with Moonlighter, which puts a wonderful spin on your typical procedurally generated roguelike dungeon crawling experience with a almost kind of like hometown wholesome approach that you can go back to town and run your very own shop with all the goodies that you found inside the dungeon. So we're going to start a new game here today, playing the recommended level of difficulty. I've played about 3-ish plus hours in the game. And here we are. Among the stars of the night, there's a land as old as imagination. One night, mazes full of extraordinary treasures and deadly creatures appeared in this land. They called the dungeons the strange ever-changing ruins of the unknown lands. Soon a village of the slightly curious took root near the dungeons. This they named Renoka. Among the settlers, two groups shined brightest, heroes and merchants, glory and riches. But the dungeons proved too dangerous. They were soon closed, with many lives being lost in their depths. Life became difficult for the town, especially for the young owner of the oldest shop, Will of Moonlighter, long dreaming of opening the mysterious fifth door of the dungeons. So that's kind of how we start in this game. We are a young shopkeeper who inherited the store, the Will of the Moonlighter, from our father, who died presumably in this dungeon somewhere. And we're trying to uphold his legacy and make a living by selling stuff we get from the dungeon, while also secretly at night, kind of like a Cape Crusader, an old school one. By night, we're also trying to be a gallivanting hero, and not just gather up the knickknacks from the easiest dungeon, but to try and conquer all of them. Which I think is kind of cool. It's almost like a coming-of-age story wrapped up in a simple indie beat-em-up, stab-em-up dungeon crawler. So we've got some pretty basic controls. We can stab things, we can duck and roll over obstacles, enemies, or chasms, as the case may be. This is actually really handy when you're trying to avoid getting hit. And then we can also stab things with different weapons. To begin with, all we have is the broom that we use to sweep up our shop during the day, which might not be your typical best weapon for fighting your way through a dungeon, but it does all right. For right now, we're just fighting some lowly slimes, right? Nothing to worry about, eh? And then as you're fighting through these different rooms, this will look like a lot of different roguelikes that you can encounter, especially things like the Binding of Isaac, but instead of a bunch of crazy power-ups, you have to build and craft your new weapons by finding materials either from enemies that drop them or from these chests that open up after you've cleaned out a room or defeated a boss. And here we go. Now we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of it, where we're going to technically get overwhelmed by all these critters that are trying to break in here and touch us. This is one of those kind of catch-22 type tutorials in this game, where you get to do all this cool stuff, but instead of letting you run away from everything, they try to overwhelm you with sheer number of enemies to eventually make you die, so that you can trigger the next portion. Splurp. So the good news about these dungeons is they're not quite as unforgiving as other games, despite all the deaths inside. When we die, we get regurgitated, like a mother bird feeding her babies. Ah, Xenon. Ah, what a sorry-looking kid. All alone now. Rest for a bit, Will. I've got you now. So this is Xenon. He's kind of like our mentor. He's the guy that's been looking after us since our father died of mysterious unknown circumstances. And he tries to make sure that we're taking care of the shop and we're not going to get ourselves killed on some cockamamie, I should say, errand, going into the dungeons to try and become the hero of heroes. And as you can see from our own personal journal, we might be a little bit of a dungeon nerd at the end of the day. We've got nothing but diagrams and documents collected by adventurers of the dungeons that we've been poring over for years since we were a kid. Oh, there's no doubt. You carry the same obsession as old Pete. Oh, what the heck's going on? Did I get kidnapped by an old man again? Did you get me with the candy in the van? Oh, morning, my boy. Did our little merchant bite off a little bit more than he could chew? Well, listen to me now. The hard truth is this. You're the last of your family, the only one left to run Moonlighter. You can't keep pushing yourself like this. Risking your life on this fifth door nonsense is foolish. Just leave it be. Find some artifacts, then use your magic pendant to get out of the dungeon. And for Crater's sake, stop using that broom of yours, you daft boy. It's dangerous to go alone. Take this. It's mine from back in the day. Use it. I have little need for it now that I'm old and arthritic and cranky. So I like the not so subtle like Zelda hint here. Like, it's dangerous to go alone. Take this. And also it's got a shield, because who would send a kid into danger with just a sword, right? All right, now then, get up. You're wasting light. Can't have you neglect the shop all day. Let's see if you can get through your hard head some of the tricks that I picked up from your grandfather so many, many years ago. Am I selling wares or am I turning tricks for cash? I'm concerned now. So this is basically our base of operations. The back room is our home, where we can store our various goodies in these two chests. This table over here is kind of our journal of sorts, where they update us when we do big fancy things. Which admittedly I don't necessarily know is super important, but it's kind of cool to see all of the artwork and graphics that go into this game. And over here is our shop, where we sell goodies to adventurers, trying to do like a half and half between making sure the product's not too expensive and not too cheap so people don't buy a bunch of it and then we don't flood the market. Now, you must know an item's value as well as its demand, Will. Come now, open the shop up and allow the customers in. So the idea is there's kind of like a price that if there's a high demand for a good, they'll pay it. Or if there's a low demand for a good, they won't. And everyone's looking to bargain hunt. You're supposed to try to like suss out slowly what the best value is for all of these items. I may look up a few occasionally, not that I'm admitting to any wiki trawling or anything. So the whole idea is this side of the game is trying to be supply and demand and sell stuff to people, and the other side is the actual combat. So it's an interesting alternative to providing a different way of doing crafting in the game. So the idea is we sit here behind the counter and people come in and look at our wares that are set up on the table, of which we can sell up to 4 at a time to begin with. And they look at them and they say, either this is a great price and they're willing to pay for it, or it's an awful price and they're not willing to pay for it. And Xenon's just letting us know that you have to look for the emoji expressions in their thought bubbles in order to determine if the price is too high, if it's too low, or if it's mostly about the supply and demand that's keeping the things however they are. So that other crystal was about $100 in this game, or 100 gold. This other crystal is the same thing, but for 170, and that guy had a really bad reaction. It's way overpriced, he's not willing to buy it. And that's the gist of how the buying and selling works in this game for the moment. We still don't really have the ability to buy anything. That'll come in a minute. So we'll get into more of that in a minute after we've stabbed a few things in the old Duncan Dungaroo. I'm just gonna see what I've got in my inventory here. Our inventory is split up into a couple of different sections. If I finish talking to Xenon. Yep, go off, murder some people, start a new world with your sword. Well, maybe don't worry about trying to do that so you don't get stabbed like your father and your grandfather. Those dungeons are a perilous place at night, but one can always find better artifacts. Just don't dive too far, and use that pendant, boy. So I guess, unlike other adventurers that have gone into these dungeons, our family came across an ancient pendant that allows us to teleport back at the price of some of the gold that we've accrued in the dungeon so that we don't die to anything nasty. So go on now. These weary bones of mine must rest. Oh, I guess we're not going to sell yet. I forgot about that. So what we've got to begin with is we've got this sword. We can stab things with it. We can block with it, which is much better than the broom that we had. Spears can be pretty good, but that starting broom that we get, it's kind of piddly. It only stabs forward. It attacks really slowly, so we're just gonna not use that for a while. But I might make a spear later, because those are really handy for reaching across obstacles to poke things to death from behind cover. So all of the dungeons are in this little corner over here. There's a total of 5 of them, although I've only gotten to the second one so far. And inside of them, they're all laid out in a grid pattern where you go from room to room, clearing out anything that you find, trying to accrue some goodies. I wonder if there's anything down in here. Nope. You try to, for the most part, avoid falling into these gaps, but a few of them have hidden basements in them that I would like to find because they're usually full of the best goodies. So the idea is each room you get locked into with whatever critters you find inside, and the doors will only open if you kill everything in there. Some of the enemies are more difficult, like these knights that slam the ground in front of them wherever you were just standing. And ideally you would try to walk away from them as they smash so you don't get injured. There's another type of golem knight that is a caster. Those ones are my least favorite. But they're all pretty easy to manage, especially in the early parts of the game. Although I've been kind of spoiled because I pretty quickly got some really expensive items to upgrade to some overpowered gauntlets, and I've been playing with those for a good while. Now, normally in a dungeon crawler, my objective would be to dig as deep as I can and find the boss as quickly as I can, but that's not always the situation inside of Moonlighter, because I can, at any time, once it's been unlocked by the story here, teleport back to base and sell my wares, upgrade, so I have a much easier time of getting through the dungeon. And you can do that as much as you want until you're basically completely overpowered. So what do we got here? We've got a dead guy with some other magical stuff. And we've got what looks like a temple golem that's humanoid shaped with a pouch that's been cut in half over here. And you'll oddly see this a lot. A lot of people who get stuck in these dungeons set up a base camp, die, and all you get to see are the remnants of all of their stuff and what they tried to do down here. To a person of hopefully far better luck than I, my time is short. I took injury from the strange creature across the room. My pendant, all but shattered from the scuffle. Check him out, though. I'd say he fared better than, or I say I fared better than he. He caught me spying on him near the Guardian's room. He dropped a couple of items when he fled. One of which was this map diagram thing. Whatever it is, I was right. They called me crazy, said old crazy Pete done gone lost his marbles, so I basically found my dead grandpa already. But I was right. Each guardian of a dungeon must possess a key of sorts. Or maybe this is my father. I'm not really sure if Pete is grandpa or father. All of them linked to that giant locked door outside the dungeons, the 5th door, of Renoka. Sadly, I won't be around to see the door open. To whoever found me, I apologize for the smell. But the diagram should be around here somewhere. Please open the 5th door. These dungeons are not what they seem. They're far more sinister. Now, usually when you find a dead body, you can break it or desecrate it and get things like healing potions or other gear from them, but probably for the best that we don't beat up Grandpa. Big boss gonna kill me. I suppose to let them all out. Now have to chase this weird creature that stole my stuffs. Big boss gonna be so upset with little me. Okay, so here's the diagram. So we're in this first one way over on the lower left, the blue boss room. We're going to get the blue key from here, and we need to get all 4 of these keys from all 4 of these dungeons to open up the big scary door. That's basically all that this diagram tells us, and it's also going to explain to us how our amulet that lets us teleport back works. So basically, as our amulet fills with the requisite amount of gold, and we get a certain number of items or get a certain amount of loot, it'll activate so we can teleport back to town, which is now illustrated in the corner of my screen. And unfortunately, we don't really get to explore the rest of this dungeon right now. It wants to illustrate how the teleport feature works by eating the 200 gold that we've got and showing us that we got a couple of items that we can sell, which is good. We can sell most of this stuff. It gives you an idea of all of the bosses and enemies that you killed and some of the chests that you opened. And now we can go back to town. It's all very goo related. This is a goo transportation network of untold proportions that just snorks us out like a snot rocket back at town. So Xenon's like, the young proprietor of Moonlighter has returned. You look intact. Finally learned to use that pendant properly, eh? Xenon, it's about time. It's about time, boy. What are you holding? Is that a chart of the dungeons? Where did you get this? You found old Pete, huh? Oh. Dead. Well, I suppose it makes sense. He's been gone for your whole life, basically. It was either that or he ran away with the circus, but the circus never really came here much. Anyway, see, this is what happens when you chase what's behind that door, boy. Leave it, Will. Just get the artifacts you need from the Golem dungeon, and look after Moonlighter. Now, I noticed some posts on the town board that may interest you. Some shops want to move into town and attempt to revitalize the place. Apparently, they need some startup capital, though. Would be nice to see some new life in Renoka if you could give them a hand. Nice indeed. So the idea is if we want to build stuff, we have to pay money to get access to a blacksmith, a potion maker, and some other NPCs that I won't spoil as of yet. By going to this board here, this bulletin board, and you can either upgrade the town by paying a certain amount of money, or you can upgrade your shop with better shelf space, better storage in the form of chests, a better bed that'll give you bonus health if you use it before going into a dungeon. All sorts of stuff can be yours if you just spend all of your delicious dollary dues on the IKEA catalog of random vendors and shop equipment. But for right now, what I'm interested in is I'm going to set up shop in here, adjust some prices on some different items, and try to make some cash, because for the moment, I'm not fully prepared to build and or do much inside of the game. Actually, I bet vines don't strike me as particularly valuable, so let's do this at like just something low, like $5. And then what else do we want to sell? Because I could use some scratch sooner rather than later. Let's just sell all the vines. And the nice thing about the vending system, or the vendors in this game, is that these tables will retain the knowledge of the prices that we set when we started putting stuff out. So when I throw down more crystals in the future, I'll know where I was, and then when I go into my inventory, I can open up my notebook, and it kind of keeps track of the prices that I sold all of my stuff for, so that I can see like the average highs and lows of all these things, and see what the best prices are. So I'm not just constantly guessing and trying to memorize everything, because there's a lot of items in this game, and I would say that the vast majority of them are pretty useless. They're really just meant to be sold to other people so that you can save time and space. So let's go through here and just dump a couple of things in my inventory. I know I need a lot of these foundry rests to build different weapons and equipment. I need this royal slime jelly in order to make potions. I need iron bars and hard steel for weapons, and the rest of the stuff I can pretty much sell. So what are you guys thinking? You guys want to buy something? I've got some random plant detritus from a bunch of Monty Python shrubberies that like to get really handsy. And apparently that's still a pretty high price at 5 Hirschsmackers, especially because there appears to be very low demand for random vines. Well, this lady seemed pretty happy with those golem parts, so that's nice. Maybe we can get some money for these if I dump them down to like 100 to make sure that they actually sell. Because I'm not really looking to make a serious amount of bank on these particular items, because there's some stuff only at 1 or 2 floors down which sell a whole world better than any of this junk. So there we go, we'll sell these golem cores. And what else do I want to put out? Let's put out the motes of water spheres and these roots and glass lenses. I don't think any of these are particularly valuable. So I think roots are actually used in order to make bows, so we'll probably want to keep more of those later, but I've always had lots of these, so I'm not going to be too particularly stingy with selling them. So these roots I will set at, let's say $5, because they're kind of like a junky material. We'll set these motes of water at like a 100, and let's set these to like 150, these lenses. And let's see if anyone likes those. I might be misremembering these because I was just Googling these before and letting the table remember for me. Okay, so for water spheres, about $100 is pretty decent. What about those lenses? If it gets like a super excited face with money eyes, oh, that's too much. Let's change that. Let's dump that down to like 100. And see if that improves things. Do you like the sticks? Because boy, I've got a really big one for you, Grandma, if you know what I mean. We're about to make this the guild capital of Renoka. Okay, so 100's pretty good for these little crystals, and if I really want people to buy them no matter what, I'll probably dump them down to like 75. And that'll be it for what I want to sell for right now. Let's close up shop. And let's go dive back into the dungeon after I purchase a new upgrade. So one of the things I'd probably buy first, just to be smart about it, is I'd probably buy the blacksmith. He provides us with equipment, and the alchemist provides us with potions, which are very expensive. Be very careful about getting smacked in this game. And also enchantments that improve our gear's ability to do basically everything. So I'm going to pay most of my money to bring in the blacksmith. This carpenter guy, probably the only dude that still builds stuff in this town, is going to come over and set up shop for him. He also opens dungeons as we unlock them. And he's going to provide us with the ability to build stuff. We can build different guns and, well, not a gun, but a bow, fist weapons, large swords, little swords, spears, all that good stuff. So this is Andre. Aye, you must be well, no? The one who requested my forge. My name's Andre, Forge Master Extraordinaire. If it's a weapon or armor you seek, Vulcan's Forge is the place. So some very nice Greek references here. So this is where we need to start gathering up certain materials. We need to get some more of those water spheres to craft different armors. We need more of those metal rods, those forge stacker things. Just about anything metal looking or cloth related we could probably do with getting to build some armor to improve our survivability and give us more health. They also have a speed rating, which will affect how fast we move because, you know, obviously heavier armor. Sure, it's got more defensive capabilities, but if you only move at a snail's pace, some of the lasers on the walls will kill us. We can also build different weapons. I'm going to be eyeballing these mitts if I don't find any inside the dungeon. And we'll be playing around with those as we upgrade things. I think the only thing we're missing really is like an old school hand cannon to fire at enemies from the hip. But that's fine for right now. Let's see if we can get any free money from these trees. If you go around town smashing stuff, occasionally you find that the squirrels around these parts have been hoarding coins. But that's about all we can really do in town for the moment. So we're going to try and get ourselves stabbed by going back into the dungeon. And this is the primary back and forth of this game, where you go into the dungeon fight different things, and come out with sweet, delicious loot. So that'll be where I leave off for this particular episode, everybody. I've been your host, Larry. Don't forget to like and subscribe and let me know what you think about Moonlighter so far. I've been finding this game very relaxing. I like the soundtrack and everything in the background. I like to just put this on for a while, try not to die a few times before bed, and then go toddle off to sleep. I'd fully recommend it so far. But if you're not sold on it or you're just curious, by all means, we're going to go on a nice adventure, and I'll try and show you what the whole thing looks like. So, bye everybody, and have a good one.